The Threxeri warship descended through the atmosphere of the small Earth colony world, its engines glowing an ominous red against the peaceful blue sky. Commander Vexa stood at the viewport, her 7-foot frame encased in battle armor that had seen a dozen campaigns across 3 star systems. The metallic plates shifted with her movements, accentuating her muscular physique as she studied the primitive settlement below. Pathetic, she muttered, mandibles clicking in disdain. This is what the High Command considers a threat? Wooden structures and dirt roads? Lieutenant Krozak approached with a respectful bow. Commander, scans show minimal technology. No energy weapons, no defensive systems. Just agriculture. Vex's amber eyes narrowed. The Threxeri Dominion does not take chances, Lieutenant. Every species must know their place. She adjusted the ceremonial blade at her hip, a weapon that had tasted the blood of champions on 7 worlds. Prepare the landing party. I will challenge their dominant warrior as tradition demands. The ship landed in a clearing, flattening a section of tall grass. Locals gathered at a distance, wide-eyed and murmuring. Vexa emerged from the ship's ramp with 4 armed guards, drinking in their fear. The translator embedded in her armor processed their primitive language easily. By the ancient rites of challenge, she proclaimed, voice booming across the field, I, Commander Vexa of the Threxeri Dominion, demand to face your strongest warrior in combat. The colonists exchanged confused glances. Finally, an older man stepped forward hesitantly. I'll fetch Jeb. He's out by the south field. Vexa waited impatiently in the hot sun, her scaled skin absorbing the heat pleasantly while her soldiers shifted uncomfortably in their armor. After 20 minutes, a battered vehicle approached, spewing dust behind it. It stopped, and a human climbed out, tall for his kind, but still a head shorter than Vexa, wearing dirt-stained clothes and a wide-brimmed hat. Folks said someone's looking for me, he drawled, removing his hat to reveal sun-bleached hair and a weathered face. Vexa stared incredulously. You are their champion warrior? The man, Jeb Carter, scratched his stubbled chin. Well now, I don't know about champion. I'm just a farmer. Strongest in these parts at ballin', hay, and wranglin' angry goats, I reckon. Vexa laughed. Loudly. Mockingly. This is an insult. I demand to face your military leader. Jeb looked genuinely confused. Ma'am, we ain't got military here. Just farmers, mechanics, and a doctor who visits twice a month. Then you will have to suffice, Vexa hissed, drawing her blade. Its edge caught the sunlight, gleaming menacingly. Prepare yourself for combat. Instead of fear, Jeb's face showed only puzzlement. Now hold on. I don't even know who you folks are or why you want to fight. He gestured toward a modest house in the distance. How about you come in for some lemonade, and we can talk this through civilized-like. The Threxeri do not negotiate with lesser species, Vexa sneered. We dominate them. Jeb sighed, placing his hat back on his head. Well, that ain't very neighborly. But if you're set on this fightin' business, I suppose I should warn you, I've got chores to finish by sundown. Got animals to feed and crops that won't water themselves. Vexa's mandibles clicked in what passed for a smile among her kind. This would be over in seconds. Your duties, she said, shifting into a combat stance, are about to become irrelevant. Jeb merely shrugged, leaning on his pitchfork. If you say so, miss. If you say so. Vexa lunged forward with predatory grace, her blade whistling through the air toward Jeb's chest. The gathered colonists gasped collectively, but the impact never came. Jeb had bent down at that exact moment to pick up a wrench he'd dropped earlier. The blade passed harmlessly over his head as he straightened up, seemingly unaware of how close death had come. Sorry about that, he said, pocketing the tool. Been meaning to fix that irrigation pump all morning. Vexa's amber eyes widened in disbelief. No one had ever evaded her first strike. Was it luck? Or some human combat technique disguised as clumsiness? Stand and fight properly, she demanded, circling him with practiced footwork. I am standing, Jeb replied, genuinely confused. He gestured to his feet firmly planted in the dirt. Did you want me to stand somewhere else? With a growl of frustration, Vexa launched a complex attack sequence, a combination that had defeated champions on 3 different worlds. She spun, blade flashing in deadly arcs, aiming for non-lethal but incapacitating strikes. Jeb, meanwhile, had spotted a problem with his fence. Excuse me just a second, he muttered, stepping sideways to examine a loose post. Vexa's attack missed entirely as she sliced through empty air. Your evasion techniques are unusual, Vexa admitted grudgingly, recalibrating her approach. My what now? Jeb looked up from the fence post. He was wiggling to test its stability. Their bizarre dance continued across the farmyard. Vexa executed a perfect leaping attack, only for Jeb to slip in a patch of mud at the critical moment, causing her to sail over him and crash directly into a water trough. She emerged sputtering, her dignity in tatters along with her soaked ceremonial garments. The watching colonists were silent, too shocked to even laugh. Oh my goodness! Jeb hurried over, offering a hand. You all right, miss? That trough needed cleaning anyway, so no harm done. Vexa ignored his hand, rising with as much dignity as she could muster. Water dripped from her armor as her guards exchanged nervous glances, unsure whether to intervene. Your deception is clever, she hissed, pretending to be a simple farmer while clearly being a master of evasive combat. Jeb scratched his head. Not sure what you're talking about, but you look like you could use a break. He reached into a pocket and pulled out a wrapped package. Made this sandwich for my lunch, but you're welcome to it. It's ham and cheese. Vexa stared at the offered food, momentarily bewildered by this strange combat tactic. Was it poisoned? A distraction? Part of some elaborate Earth strategy? Her momentary hesitation gave Jeb time to walk over to his tractor. Need to move this anyway, he called over his shoulder. Got hay to bring in before the rain comes. The tractor's engine roared to life, a primitive combustion mechanism by Threxeri standards, but loud and imposing nonetheless. Vexa interpreted it as the deployment of a rudimentary battle vehicle. So you finally bring your war machines, she shouted triumphantly, charging toward the tractor with renewed purpose. Jeb, unable to hear her over the engine, simply backed the tractor up, inadvertently blocking her path. Vexa attempted to leap over it but misjudged the height. Her foot caught on a hay bale in the attached trailer, sending her tumbling into a coil of fence wire that had been left out for repairs. Within seconds, the mighty Threxeri commander was thoroughly entangled, her limbs wrapped in wire, her blade just out of reach. The more she struggled, the tighter the wire became. Jeb shut off the tractor and climbed down, his expression concerned rather than victorious. He approached cautiously and crouched beside her. Didn't mean to beat ya, miss. Y'all okay? Let me help you out of that wire. It's nasty stuff when it gets a hold of you. Vexa stared up at him, humiliation and confusion warring within her. In all her years of combat, she had never been defeated, certainly not by someone who didn't even seem to realize they were fighting. And strangely, there was no gloating in his eyes. Just genuine concern. I don't understand you, she said finally. Jeb smiled, working to carefully free her from the wire. Well, that makes two of us, miss. That sure makes two of us. For 3 days, Commander Vexa refused to admit defeat. She stalked the perimeter of Jeb's farm, mandibles clicking in frustration as she observed his daily routine. Her warship remained in orbit, her crew awaiting orders that made less sense with each passing hour. Commander, Lieutenant Krozak ventured on the third morning. Perhaps we should report back to High Command? This situation is unprecedented. I will not report failure, Vexa snapped, adjusting her newly repaired armor. The wire incident had damaged more than just the metal plates. There is something I'm missing about this human's combat technique. I must understand it. Jeb, for his part, seemed untroubled by the alien warrior monitoring his farm. He even left a thermos of coffee and a plate of biscuits on a fence post near her preferred observation spot each morning. Thought you might be hungry, he called out, pretending not to see her hiding behind the storage shed. Coffee's hot. Biscuits are fresh. Vexa initially suspected poison, but her scanners detected nothing harmful. By the third day, hunger overcame suspicion, and she found the offering surprisingly pleasant. That afternoon, when Jeb struggled to repair a broken harvester, Vexa finally emerged from hiding. Your agricultural machine is malfunctioning, she stated, approaching cautiously. Jeb wiped sweat from his brow. Yep, bearing's shot. Been trying to get this bolt loose for an hour. Vexa studied the mechanism. Primitive, but not entirely dissimilar to certain Threxeri equipment. Without comment, she reached over, her superior strength easily turning the stubborn bolt. Well, I'll be, Jeb grinned. Much obliged. They worked in silence for several minutes, an unlikely pair, the towering alien warrior handing tools to the sun-weathered farmer. Finally, Vex's curiosity got the better of her. Why do you perform these labors yourself? Where I come from, warriors would never engage in such menial tasks. Jeb considered this while adjusting a component. Well, out here, can't really afford to be just one thing. Farmer, mechanic, Carpenter, I'm all of them. Necessary, I reckon. On my world, individuals serve specific functions. Warriors fight. Workers work. Sounds efficient, Jeb nodded. But lonely too, maybe. Never knowing what else you might be good at. The question caught Vexa off guard. Throughout her lifetime of military training, such philosophical matters were discouraged. As days turned to a week, Vexa found herself increasingly integrated into the farm's routine. She learned to feed the animals, her initial disgust giving way to grudging respect for their simple utility. The chickens, especially, seemed unintimidated by her fearsome appearance. One evening, as Jeb prepared dinner, he finally asked the question that had hung between them. So why'd you really come here looking to fight? Vexa sat stiffly at his kitchen table, looking oddly domestic despite her battle armor. The Threxeri Dominion expands through ritual combat. We challenge a world's strongest warrior. Victory establishes our superiority. Seems an awful lot of trouble, Jeb said, stirring a pot of stew. Why not just talk to folks first? Talk is not our way. Your way include eating? Because dinner's ready. The meal was simple but satisfying. Vexa found herself explaining Threxeri customs, while Jeb described Earth's various cultures. His knowledge surprised her. This supposedly simple farmer had once been a teacher before seeking a quieter life among the stars. Tomorrow I'll show you how we bring in the North Field, Jeb said as they finished eating. Gonna need an extra pair of hands. My hands were trained for combat, not harvest. Jeb smiled. Strong hands work the same either way. Besides, thought you wanted to understand our ways. Vexa narrowed her eyes. Is this another test? Another combat challenge? Nope. Just farming. He stood and gathered their plates. But I will say this, I've seen soldiers come through here before. None of them could handle a full day of harvest season. Too soft. The deliberate challenge in his voice was unmistakable. For the first time since her arrival, Vexa felt something besides confusion or frustration. She felt intrigued. I accept your farming challenge, she said formally. Tomorrow, we shall see who is soft. Jeb's eyes crinkled with amusement. Reckon we will at that. As Vexa walked back to her small camp that night, she found herself looking forward to the morning, a feeling she hadn't experienced since her early training days. The stars above were the same ones she'd always known, but somehow they looked different from this small, backwater farm. Something was changing. Something important. And for once in her disciplined life, Commander Vexa had no battle plan to follow. Dawn broke over the colony with streaks of amber and gold. Vexa arrived at the farmhouse earlier than agreed, finding Jeb already awake, sipping coffee on his porch. You're prompt, he observed, offering her a steaming mug. Good quality in a farmer. I am not a farmer, she reminded him stiffly, though she accepted the coffee. I am here to prove my superior endurance. Jeb merely smiled. We'll see. Storms coming in faster than expected. Means we've got about 8 hours to harvest the entire North Field before it hits. The North Field turned out to be an expanse of golden wheat stretching to the horizon. Even with Jeb's harvester machine, the task seemed impossible for 2 individuals. Your colony has no additional laborers? Vexa asked, surveying the challenge before them. Neighbors would help normally, but they've got their own fields to bring in. Jeb patted the harvester affectionately. Just you, me, and Bessie here. The day unfolded in a rhythm of ceaseless activity. Vexa operated the harvester while Jeb managed the collection vehicle alongside. The work was monotonous yet demanded constant attention, a different kind of battle focus than she was accustomed to. By midday, dark clouds gathered on the horizon. The temperature dropped as winds picked up, bending the remaining wheat in rippling waves. Storm's coming faster than I thought, Jeb called out, voice nearly lost in the wind. We need to hurry. Vexa pushed the harvester to its limits, her warrior instincts now fully engaged against this new enemy, time itself. Hours blurred together in dust and sweat and the growing darkness of the approaching storm. When the first heavy raindrops began to fall, they had harvested nearly 3/4 of the field. Jeb signaled for her to return to the barn, but Vexa shook her head firmly. We finished the mission, she shouted over the rising wind. Lightning flashed closer now, followed immediately by booming thunder that Vexa felt in her chest plate. The harvester's wheels slipped in the increasingly muddy ground, but she compensated with techniques learned from piloting Threxeri assault vehicles. They were down to the final rows when disaster struck. A massive lightning bolt hit a tree at the field's edge, sending it crashing down directly toward the collection vehicle, with Jeb inside. Without hesitation, Vexa leapt from the harvester. Her powerful legs propelled her through the air as she tackled Jeb clear of the vehicle seconds before the tree crushed its cabin. They rolled together in the mud, coming to rest with Vexa protectively positioned over him. Rain poured down around them as they stared at each other, both breathing hard. "You saved my life," Jeb said finally. "Tactical necessity," Vexa replied, mandibles clicking nervously. The mission required 2 operators. Jeb's laugh was warmed despite the cold rain. "If you say so." The storm intensified, forcing them to abandon the remaining harvest. They raced toward the barn through sheets of rain, Vexa practically carrying Jeb as the wind threatened to knock him over. Inside the barn, drenched and mud-splattered, Vexa expected to feel defeat. Instead, she experienced something unfamiliar: satisfaction. They hadn't completed the full harvest, but they had saved most of it against formidable odds. "Not bad for your first day farming," Jeb said, tossing her a towel. "The challenge remains incomplete," she insisted, wiping mud from her armor. "Life ain't about completion, it's about adaptation." Jeb gestured toward the storm raging outside. "Nature throws curveballs. True strength is knowing when to push through and when to regroup." The barn door suddenly burst open, nearly torn from its hinges by the wind. Rain and debris flooded in as the storm reached its full fury. Without discussion, they moved as one, Jeb grabbing tools while Vexa used her strength to force the door closed against the gale. Together they secured the barn, working with wordless coordination as though they'd been partners for years rather than days. When they finally collapsed on hay bales, exhausted but successful, Vexa realized something profound. In all her battles across the stars, she had never experienced this particular feeling, this connection to another being based not on dominance but on mutual effort toward a common goal. Your farming challenges, she admitted slowly, required different strength than combat, but strength nonetheless. Jeb's hand found hers in the dim light of the storm-darkened barn. His touch was gentle but calloused from years of honest labor. "Different worlds, different strengths," he agreed. "But seems to me we make a pretty good team." Lightning illuminated his face momentarily, the steady eyes, the quiet confidence, the complete lack of fear or subservience that she'd come to expect from those she encountered. For the first time in her life, Commander Vexa of the Threxerai Dominion found herself respecting someone who had never won a battle, yet somehow had conquered her. "Perhaps," she said softly, "there is wisdom in your ways that the Dominion has overlooked." Outside, the storm continued to rage. Inside, something new and unexpected began to take root. The storm passed overnight, leaving behind a transformed landscape. Fields glistened with raindrops in the morning sun, and puddles reflected the clear blue sky. Vexa stood outside Jeb's farmhouse, gazing at her communications device. 3 urgent messages from Threxerai Command demanded her status report. For the first time in her career, Commander Vexa hesitated to follow orders. Inside, Jeb prepared breakfast, humming an old Earth tune. The domestic scene felt jarringly out of place in Vex's warrior existence, yet somehow more real than the countless military campaigns that had defined her life. "Your metal friend's been calling?" Jeb asked when she finally came inside, nodding toward her communication device. "Yes. They expect my report on Earth's submission." Jeb slid a plate of eggs and toast toward her. "And what exactly will you be telling them?" It was the question she'd wrestled with through the sleepless night. The Threxerai Dominion expanded through intimidation and ritual combat, assimilating worlds into their hierarchy or marking them for resource extraction. Her mission had been clear: defeat Earth's champion, establish dominance, report back for the invasion fleet. But none of that seemed important anymore. "I don't know," she admitted, an unprecedented confession for a Threxerai commander. Jeb sat across from her, his weathered face serious. "In my experience, truth's usually the best policy, even when it's complicated." "The truth is complicated indeed." Vex's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "I came to conquer but found myself conquered. Not by weapons, but by something I don't fully understand." "Some might call that connection," Jeb suggested quietly. "Others might call it something else." Their eyes met across the table, a silent acknowledgement of the unspoken thing that had grown between them, a connection that defied the boundaries of species and culture. The communications device beeped again, more insistently this time. Vexa sighed and stood, duty pulling her back to reality. "I must speak with my superiors. They will not understand, but they must hear the truth." Outside, beneath the oak tree where they'd sheltered during a brief respite in yesterday's harvest, Vexa activated the holographic projector. The stern face of Fleet Commander Drax materialized in the air before her. Commander Vexa, your silence has been concerning. Report your status immediately. She straightened to attention from years of training. Sir, I have engaged with the human settlement as ordered. Excellent. Did you defeat their champion? Are they prepared for integration? Vexa hesitated, then spoke with firm resolve. Sir, I must report that Earth cannot be conquered through our traditional methods. Explain, Drax demanded, eyes narrowing suspiciously. Humans possess strength unlike any species we've encountered. Not merely physical power, but adaptability, resilience, and forms of courage our warriors have never needed to develop. She thought of Jeb facing the storm, his quiet confidence, his generous spirit. They do not recognize defeat because they do not view conflict as we do. This is most irregular, Commander. Are you suggesting these primitives have bested you? Vexa stood taller. I am suggesting, sir, that the Dominion would benefit more from alliance than conquest. These humans have much to teach us about different kinds of strength. Drax's expression darkened. You sound compromised, Commander. Return to the fleet immediately for reassignment and rehabilitation. With respect, sir, I request extended observation status. There is more to learn here that could benefit the Dominion. Denied. Return at once or face charges of dereliction. Vexa took a deep breath. Then I must respectfully submit my resignation from the Threxari military forces. The words hung in the air, treasonous and liberating. Drax's holographic face contorted with shock before the transmission abruptly terminated. She stood alone beneath the tree, the weight of centuries of Threxari tradition falling from her shoulders with each passing second. For the first time since childhood, her path was uncharted. Behind her, a screen door creaked. Jeb stepped out onto the porch, concern etched on his face. That didn't sound like it went well. It did not, Vexa agreed, walking back toward the house. They will likely send another commander to complete my mission. And what about you? Jeb asked, his voice carefully neutral. Vexa looked around at the farm, at the half-harvested field they'd fought to save, at the barn they'd secured together against the storm, at this simple place that had somehow changed everything. I find myself unemployed, she said, attempting the human concept of humor. Jeb's eyes crinkled with understanding. Well now, that's fortunate. I happen to be hiring. Farm this size could use someone with your strength and quick thinking. Pays not much, but includes room and board. You would have me stay? Even knowing others of my kind may come. Threats come in all forms out here. Storms, equipment failures, bad harvests. Jeb shrugged, offering his hand. Having a former alien commander around might just even the odds. Vexa looked at his outstretched hand, then beyond him to the communications device now blinking red with incoming messages from the fleet. The choice before her was momentous, duty versus possibility, the known versus the undiscovered. She took his hand. I accept your offer, Jeb Carter. I believe I would like to learn more about farming, and perhaps about Earth customs as well. His fingers closed around hers, warm and sure. Well, first Earth custom is a proper welcome home dinner. Second's teaching you how to dance at the Harvest Festival next week. Dance. Vex's mandibles clicked in alarm. I am not trained in such combat techniques. Jeb laughed, pulling her gently toward the farmhouse. It ain't combat, but it is a challenge. Reckon you're up for it? As they walked together toward the house, Vexa spotted her lieutenant watching uncertainly from the edge of the property. She nodded once in his direction, a silent command to return to the ship without her. The Threxari Dominion would need to rethink their approach to Earth. And Commander Vexa, no, just Vexa now, would need to learn to dance. I accept all challenges, she said, squeezing Jeb's hand carefully to avoid hurting him with her strength, especially those involving hay bales and kindness. Above them, the Threxari warship rose from its hiding place among the clouds, hesitated for a moment, then disappeared into the atmosphere, leaving behind one of their finest warriors to discover a different kind of strength in the arms of a simple farmer.